the way that salespeople need to react to that and what they need to be doing online to counteract that. Because at the moment, what people are doing is they're still interrupting people by making cold calls. And what salespeople need to start doing is actually understanding that and then working out what can I do to actually be attractive to buyers. And what people are expecting is that they're expecting to see a certain profile. So you have your passive profile, which is your LinkedIn profile that you'll set up once. You may change every 6 months, but you'll set it up once. And then you have your active profile, which is what you're posting on a daily and a weekly basis.
Hello, this is Bushan, and welcome to this week's edition of Loop Email Podcast. Today with us, we have Tim Hughes. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Bushan. It's great to be here.
Tim is CEO and co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. You have a well-known career in Oracle, including being the EMEA sales director in Oracle. And lately you've been a best-selling author of two very important books, Social Selling and Marketing, How to Achieve Competitive Advantage Through Blended Sales and Marketing. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, very good, thank you, and nice, short and precise.
Let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. I know a lot of our viewers are listening to this and are asking themselves, okay, so we have sales. What is this social selling thing? So give us a little bit of an overview of how you understand social selling and why it's so important in transforming sales organizations in today's environment.
Okay, thank you. Well, first thing is that clear up any confusion. Social selling is not selling on social. Social is a mechanism that we can use to allow us to get leads and meetings, but we do it by actually not selling on a social platform. So what is social selling? Well, things have changed in the last 5-10 years. We have a set of buyers now that are more enabled, they're digitally enabled. You can sit in a cafe on a Saturday and you can go online and you can look for products and services to buy. And as a buyer, you can do that. And if you as a seller or as a company, you're not present and the people can't find you, then you won't be part of the shortlist. And that can be the same for, whether you're buying a holiday, whether you're buying a car, or whether you're buying, $100,000 piece of software. If you look at, I live in London, traveling on the train, and everybody's on their mobile, and that's the thing now. We're not constrained by any other way or part of the buying process. So, as a seller, we have to react to that. And one of the ways of reacting to that is to see social media as our territory and our ability to link with people and connect with them and build relationships.
So in short, does that mean the relationship? We understand the phrase of relationship selling, and we knew that relationships were very important. So are you talking about moving physical relationships onto social? Is that part of the discussion?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the Gartner figures, the research shows that people are now 57% of the way through the buying process before they contact a salesperson. It doesn't really matter whether it's 50% or 30% or 80%. The fact of the matter is that they're avoiding talking to salespeople. And whereas when I first started selling, in effect, I was a walking brochure. You had to come to me and have a conversation with me. Now you don't need to. I'm aware of people that are buying products. I know someone that bought, the salesperson was phoned up. This person said, I'm going to buy your accounting system. Can you tell me how much it is and how I buy it? And they said, well, don't you want a demo? They said, no, we looked at all your, we've seen all your videos on YouTube. We've decided to buy your product. And that product is a fairly large scale, $100,000, $200,000 product. So this is not something, where people are buying kindergarten stuff. They're making serious decisions and they're doing it online. And what I cover in the book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers, is the way that salespeople need to react to that and what they need to be doing online to counteract that. Because at the moment, what people are doing is they're still interrupting people by making cold calls. It's interesting, but all that you're finding is that the sales leader is saying, you've got to make more calls, you've got to make more calls. And the reason for that, it's not just not working anymore. And what people need to do is actually move their territory from analog and do it digitally on social.
And if we go into sort of, do you think there's a time in the future where we won't have the salesperson, or is that role just going to fundamentally change altogether?
I still think that there is a role for legacy sales methods like cold calling. If you're selling something very low value, something very tactically, I'll get a call from someone who's selling tickets for a sports event where the value of it's very low. You can make a decision there and then. If you want to buy it, you give them a credit card. And tactically, that's that. But when I talk to people in big companies and they say, if I phoned up the finance director of GlaxoSmithKline and said, "Can I have 30 minutes of your time and demo my product?" the person on reception would just laugh, and so would the executive assistant. I mean, it just isn't. And the fact that people think that if they phoned me, I would immediately go, wow, that's amazing. It just doesn't work like that anymore. And the more, and as time goes on, what happens is that we become more and more used to the fact that we have access to an infinite amount of content and information. And if we want that information, we just have to go out and look at it on our mobiles. We don't need salespeople, we can avoid them. And what salespeople need to start doing is actually understanding that and then working out, what can I do to actually be attractive to buyers? So as a company, we do know outbound marketing. We do know cold calling. We do know advertising. We don't send any unsolicited emails, and we don't have to, because everything that we do is on social, and that's what we do as a company. We teach our clients how to do that. And we always see that ourselves as being the best test case, and you don't need to interrupt people anymore. Marketing and sales now can be permission-based and relationship-based, and that's the way it's moving.
In your history, you've got a lot of sort of different experience in sales. Was there a specific point in time when you basically saw this happening and you started moving in that direction? Or was it sort of a evolutionary process, in the last 10, 20 years, you've just seen the whole thing happening? Was there a moment in time that you saw this, or was this, just the normal progression of how you saw your sales organizations and yourself moving in the last?
That's a good question. I think that sales has always been evolving. When I first started in sales, there was no email, there's no internet. We had a typing pool that actually typed your letters. And then we were given laptops and we were told, and half of the salespeople said, "I don't type." And I tell that to young people now, and they think it's funny that people saying that they don't type. We all type. But there is an evolution, and you will always find people saying, "I'm not doing that." So when I was at my previous company, we were used to, my background is selling accounting systems, $1 million accounting systems, 18-month sales cycles. And we got a guy in from Financial Force, and a SaaS vendor, and we said, "So what happens?" He says, "Oh, we always close on the first meeting." And you said, "You what?" He said, "We close on the first meeting, and we're used to 18-month sales cycles." At that point, everything that we built from a sales perspective fell down. We realized it was a house of cards, and we went through a complete transformation. We ripped up everything. We taught salespeople how to use whiteboards rather than PowerPoints. We taught them about storytelling. And we had what is now a fairly small scale version of social selling that we taught them, which ultimately I then put into my book, on social selling. But it was that point where we realized that sales had changed. And while certain things haven't changed, which is we still have meetings, we're still needing to persuade people to do things in a certain way. and we may still sell, and in effect, when we meet people, we tell people how great we are. While those things haven't necessarily changed, the way that buyers react and the way that technology and legislation has changed, it definitely has changed. So on my iPhone, the new version of iOS, is it iOS 13, basically stops cold callers. Anybody that is not in my address book, it goes straight to voicemail. So I've stopped all cold callers using my phone. So this is just a simple, it takes 2 clicks to do that. That's just a simple way that legislation has changed the way that sales works. So, people have to find ways of doing that. I get these buzzes all day and they go straight to voicemail.
We had a very interesting discussion with on one of our last podcasts, and basically the one-liner was it's very hard to be a CEO these days if you're not digitally connected with your customers, with your employees. So digital connection. Can you actually be a salesman these days if you aren't digitally connected? If you don't know how to use digital tools and be able to do it?
I don't see how you can. And the same from a CEO perspective. My belief is that from the top down, you have to understand digital and be digitally aware. I'm aware of one company that their managing director gets 25 leads, inbound leads. A car company getting 25 leads a month because he's active on social. I mean, how many? Even if it was 5 leads, how many other CEOs are actually active like that? You have to be. It's now table stakes, and what people are expecting is that they're expecting to see a certain profile. So you have your passive profile, which is your LinkedIn profile that you'll set up once. You may change every 6 months, but you'll set it up once. And then you have your active profile, which is what you're posting on a daily and a weekly basis. And what you want are people to come to your profile and see you're the person that can actually help them.
Tell me now about because I understand Oracle, I understand the big companies, and we all know this is something that's going to be related to small companies as well. But is there a difference between social selling in big and small companies? Is there a difference in the amount of effort you need to put in to actually transform the sales organization? Is there any kind of difference, in your opinion, between the big and the small companies, or is this something that is very generic to both?
No, I don't see any difference at all. We're a small company. We've got now 12 people, and we do everything through social. The fact of the matter is, advertising, people don't look at advertising anymore. I was talking to a marketeer the other day, and she said, "Oh yeah, we do advertising." I said, "Do you use ad blockers?" She said, "Oh yeah, all the marketers use ad blockers." And she couldn't understand the irony of the fact that she could be blocking her own ads. So, we use ad blockers. We don't look at advertising. We've built our minds to filter it out. We don't take cold calls. We now have the legislation like GDPR and the new iOS 13 that blocks cold callers. And we don't like unsolicited emails, anything that interrupts us. So anything that's legacy. And you need to move yourself now onto social and actually understand the trend and understand that actually this isn't an argument about cold calling and social selling. This is an argument about efficiency and effectiveness. Cold calling is about throwing mud at the wall and hoping it will stick. I ring as many people as I can in the hope that somebody will say, yes, that's really interesting. On social, you know who the people will be interested and you contact them. So, I mean, we see, cold calling versus social selling. Social selling will be 10 times more efficient. Now, Tony Hughes in Australia says it's twice as efficient, but okay, we'll take that. But it's more efficient, and so the argument's been won, and what people need to do is actually start moving forward and realizing that they can meet people, they can have conversations, and they can sell stuff on social.
When you set up your team, small team, 12 people, how important was it, that you got everybody on board in how you picked the team, or were you able to basically get different profiles of people understanding your concept and going with it? In short, is there a transformation that happened within your organization, or did you pick people that actually just got it from day one? Which way did you, which way do you think is easier? Which way did you take it with your company?
With my team, because we transform sales teams with social, it's a kind of a given that those people will. We believe that if we're going to be going into organizations and saying you need to be using social to sell, it's pointless as cold calling people to do that. So everybody in my organization is the high watermark of social. And we would expect our people to stand up in front of the people they're training and go, look at my profile, this is it. In terms of going into organizations and transforming them, we actually find that there is a very straightforward pattern. It's a classic bell curve, which is that you'll find that 20% of people will be ninjas. And basically they're probably doing social at the moment. And what you're doing is that you're giving them a methodology and immediately they will fly. 60% of the people, what you're going to be doing is increasing their efficiency and effectiveness by something like 20-30%. And 20% of the people will say, I'm not interested in this. So it's no different from when in the past, when I was given a laptop and told, we fired the sales administrator, you're now doing typing. 20% of the salespeople said, I'm not typing, and they left. And we found this when I worked at my previous company, which is that there are some people that say it's just not for them, and they will go out and they will find other roles. But what you are able to do, I mean, we now with our program, it's repeatable and predictable. So we know that whenever we run our program, the first thing to do is that we'll increase incremental sales, so new business sales by 30%, and we'll cut the sales cycle by 40%. Wow. And that happens every time we run it. Now, most organizations will say, yeah, I'll have some of that, please.
Well, I would assume every organization wants that. Well done. But give me, is there a specific size of an organization you're looking at for that kind, or are you across the board from us?
Now, anybody that's got more than 10, so our programs are generally run for 10 people or 10 people at a time, because the thing that we do, the thing that makes us different from other social selling organizations is that what they do is that they provide knowledge. They say, this is how, they train you how to use LinkedIn, or they say, they put you in a room for a day and they say, here is knowledge. The problem with that is that knowing and doing are two different things. So I can tell you, so what we used to do at my previous company was, so we'd run a webinar and say, these are the things that you need to do and you will sell more. And they go, yeah. They go back to their desk and do exactly what they've done before. So the key thing is that you have to build in habit change and you have to build in mindset change. And we're the only company in the world that actually does that from a social perspective. So as you say, any organization, and we're finding, we did start off doing just B2B, but we're also now moving into retail and B2C, because actually the same terminology or the same usage of the way that you sell it is exactly the same. While in B2B, you probably know the name of the salesperson, and in B2C, you don't. You're still in effect able to use your employees as your mechanism of go-to-market.
When you do these programs and you talk about 10 people, are these 10 people normally coming from the sales organization, or do you sort of mix sales, customer success, and marketing together, or is this sort of?
That's a good point. Generally, what we do is that our recommendation to an organization is that they say, are there any volunteers? Because if you ask for volunteers, what will happen is you'll get the people that are interested in the change. So the first time you run it, you'll get the maximum response. We have run it for people, from sales, marketing, customer service, and technical people. And usually the technical people respond really well, because what they do is that they recognize that they're usually really passionate about the company and the products, but they're passionate from a technical perspective. But once they actually realize that by expressing that passion online for the technical ability, other technical people will be attracted to it.
Got it.
And in effect, what happens is that you get this selling effect. So either a selling effect through technical people and technical people talking, or it's a talent. So we're now doing work. We've just released our HR module. Then what we're doing is that we're going to be using social within HR to do recruitment, talent management, that sort of stuff. Because what you're doing is you're activating the people and their networks to find the talent within the new talent for your organization.
Going now into smaller companies, probably, a traditional Central European company has 5 to 50 employees, probably organized in a very traditional way. If you had a CEO that was connected with you, what's the stuff you'd propose to him, and what would he have to do in the first week after he had said, okay, Tim, let's do something together? What would the first week with a guy like that look like? What would be the down to earth things he should be doing, changing, or working with you to change within a week?
So there's 3 things that you need to look at on social. The first thing is that you need to have a personal brand. That sounds very grand. What that means is that rather than having an online CV or having a LinkedIn profile that says, I'm the world's best salesperson, and once I find you and get my teeth into you, I will always manipulate you into buying, which isn't necessarily something that's attractive to buyers. You actually write something that's attractive to buyers. And I put my LinkedIn profile, in fact, anybody who works for us at Digital Leadership Associates is a good example of what a good LinkedIn profile looks like. The second thing you need is a strong network. Most people are connected to probably ex-colleagues and recruiters. And what they need to be doing is thinking about who in their territory they need to be connected to, both partners, prospects, people they may dream that they want to be connected to. So for example, my business partner, Adam Gray, and I went to San Francisco and we spent some time there this summer. We knew that we were going to do that 18 months ago. So what we did was that we connected to a whole bunch of people 18 months before that in San Francisco. And then what we did was 6 weeks before we went out, we said, hey, we've been connected to you for 18 months. Do you fancy a coffee? And it's as simple as that. And if most people see that you have a good personal brand, you have a strong network, so they say, oh, he's connected to all of these interesting people, they're going to say yes to a cup of coffee. Why wouldn't they? And the third thing you need is content, and that's about not putting out content which is about how great your company is, because nobody gives a shit. Yeah, nobody cares about your company. Nobody cares about its products. You do, because it pays your mortgage, but nobody else does. What people are looking for is insight and education. And remember, you don't know a blog is any good until you've read it. So what we do, we've been going for 3 years. We've done over 700 blogs. We put out a new blog every single day. And it's not about, hey, how great we are, or how great Tim Hughes is, or how great, it's about, you want to run your social selling program globally? This is how you do it. You want to, I put out a blog yesterday from a CEO of one of our clients who said that most of the content on LinkedIn was rubbish. He said it was, if you read it, you'll see he used a different word than rubbish. It was his view sitting in a meeting of what, as a CEO, of what he thought content was like on LinkedIn. Now, you can ignore that. Fine, we live in a free world to do that. Or you could read it and go, do you know that stuff about my company and my products? Maybe you shouldn't put that out. Or, the pictures of the desks and the car keys and all that stuff that, we've seen them, it's been done, move on. And so, what we're trying to do is educate our prospects and our clients.
Tell me, because that's a really interesting point. you said one block per day, which is really a tremendous. I understand there are 12 and so on, but it's a lot of hard work. So do you have a large team working with that, or does
No.
every sales guy in your organization have to do it?
Yes.
It's part of the job description today.
Yeah, that's how you prospect in 2019. So we have a culture in our organization of prospecting, and that do you believe that clients are online and looking for insight? Yes. Do you believe that if you're not active on social, you're not going to be shortlisted? Yes. Okay, so if you don't create content, you're not visible, you're not prospecting. So in the past, people have prospected by spending time calling people. This is a classic thing. They say, "Oh, I don't have time to write." Okay, so you spent an hour calling people that won't answer you, and leaving voicemails for people that will never respond to you, sending emails that people have blocked you on, but you don't have time to actually prospect in 2019 using 2019 methods. Of course you do. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to write a blog every day. I do, because that's how, as CEO, I prospect. But everybody in our organization pools the content. And that's one of the things that we teach organizations is to how to create a content factory, so that if I create something and somebody else doesn't feel like creating some content today, then that's fine. But one of the things about creating content is the efficiency and the effectiveness. So if you take a cold call and I call someone, I talk to them for 20 minutes, that's 20 minutes. I created some videos when I was in San Francisco, and 1 minute videos. So it took a minute to create. It takes me about 15 minutes to put the subtitles on it, but let's call it about 15 minutes of time. I'll put that on social and I'll get 5,000 views. So immediately I've turned 15 minutes into, what's 15 times 5,000? And the efficiency of that and the effectiveness of that is, you can, if you were going to talk to people for 20 minutes, you just couldn't do that cold calling. You just don't have the ability to scale and make that number of calls and have that number of conversations. So again, it's back to the efficiency and effectiveness, and content is a far more efficient and effective way to reach your prospects and your clients.
But if we want to tell, and I can tell you, I cannot agree more. I get it, and I think it's very nicely put, and I think our viewers will understand. But there's a very sort of subtle question, because listening to this, a lot of our viewers will say, okay, but isn't that sort of content marketing? And they put it into this bucket called content marketing. So when you hire your people, do you find content marketeers or marketeers and convert them into these half sales prospecting people, or do you take sales guys and then teach them how to content, or do you find exactly that profile of people that both know how to write and know how to prospect and can close a deal?
I've always been amazed that salespeople want to outsource their ability to make their number to somebody else. I've never done that. I'm a new business salesperson. I've never outsourced. The person who's going to make my number is me. So I want to control that. And as a salesperson, I do control that. I've never expected leads to come from marketing. If they ever did come from marketing, it would be the icing on the cake. I think salespeople as a profession would always, good salespeople would always expect to do their own prospecting. And we teach organizations a prospecting culture of, and the great thing about it is that you're not restricted to prime selling time. So with legacy prospecting, you're stuck between 9 and 5 or 8 and 5, or trying, whereas, there's one guy in the States, he said, I prospect in the evening. I said, what do you do? He said, well, I come home, we feed the kids, I then bath the kids, I then read them a story, I put them to bed. He said, I then prospect between then and actually when I go to bed myself. And that's what we're providing people, is it's a 24-hour prospecting method. But this is how you prospect today. And as long as you have a sales force that expect to prospect and find their own opportunities, then this is the way that you can do it.
And last question. have you, within all your engagements, have you found there's a pattern where these sales guys actually do not want to change or have a hard time changing? Is there sort of
Yes.
which one is it? Is it just they don't want to change, or is there a very specific pattern that are
Yeah, you will always find amongst a team people that don't want to change, and I understand that just as much as you know, I knew people when email started off. There were people that were very good at writing letters, and they stuck to writing letters rather than sending emails. And so we've always had that, and there will always be people that don't want to change, and they will probably always find jobs because there will always be companies. You know, that we still find companies that say that they're only ever going to do stuff by cold calling. Fine, if that works for them, that works for them. But in you know, this is about transformation, and as leaders, we have to understand that people will fall by the wayside. Now, we need to support them, we need to help them, we need to coach them, but there will be people that will say no.
Got it. So we need to focus on the 20% that initiate that make the transformation. That's the bottom line.
It's you know, we're always asked as leaders. So you've got a sales force. 20% of the people will do the number. 20% of the people will fail. Where are you going to put your time? You're going to spend the time on the 20% that are going to make the number.
Yeah, of course.
So and it's exactly the same as that. It's a classic change management scenario.
Last question. What does Tim do when he's not selling social selling or doing social selling? What's your personal life look like?
Okay.
Well, I hope you don't support Tottenham.
I don't. No, okay. I'm actually a Liverpool supporter. So
then that's two of us. That's two of us.
So I live in London, and my partner and I we do a lot of, you know, we go to the theatre, we go to the opera.
Yeah.
I'm a big music fan. So I'm actually have been for a long time a vinyl LP collector. So I've got 2,000 vinyl LPs.
Wow.
I've got 878 records, which I've just inherited from my father. So music is something that's big in my life. And the other thing is travel. I love traveling. I have to travel through business, but I actually quite enjoy. I'm going to Denver next week, and I'm really looking forward to going out to Denver again, meeting people from there, because, you know, whenever you meet people, they have different views, and you just get you get a better understanding of the world when you go out and meet people.
That's great. Where, to our listeners, because this has been fabulous, where can people, I get it, you're social, so they can connect with you, but what's the best way of connecting with you?
Yes, so the best place to get me is on probably LinkedIn, and send me a connection request. If they send, when they send me a connection request, if they could write in the connection request where they've heard me, and that, it helps. I get a lot of people trying to sell me crap over LinkedIn. And so I do filter people out. So yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, but LinkedIn is probably the best place. Tim Hughes, you'll find me.
One thing I have learned from today: no cold calling for Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. You won't get through to me. Yeah.
Anyway,
and let's not forget, there's my book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers, which is on all Amazon platforms.
Tim, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would once again say, I mean, everything I heard, and I'm sure our listeners will agree. You know, we're in the social, we're online. You have to be digitally connected, and if there's anything that has changed, prospecting today has become a 24-hour type effort, and it's online, and it's not just because everybody's there, but because what I learned today, it's definitely more efficient, and it increases revenue, and it increases your sales cycles. And
yes.
Tell me of a CEO that doesn't want those kind of numbers. So Tim, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I hope we beat Salzburg today. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.